All right, good morning. Welcome to Sidelines Wednesday morning edition, August 17th of 22. Rob Brown here with you, broadcasting live from the Red River Ford Toyota Studios in Wynne, Arkansas. We're going to be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee. And Jimmy Hodge is on as well. We're going to be joining the first segment with Mitch Davis of the MitchDavisShow.com. Second segment, head over to Atlanta from Southern Sports Today. Executive producer of the Chuck Oliver Show, Dan Mathews, will be on with us. Top of hour number 2. Go up to Nashville. Johnny Ballpark Franks will join us. He does the best interviews, over 13,000 guests that he's had in his career. And he has the greatest collection of Heisman Trophy interviews of anybody that I've ever met so far. And then segment number 4, we'll go down to College Station, check in with Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com. What's going on with Texas A&M, man? I mean, this is just a building scenario for this college football season. Everybody's got a case. And Mitch Davis, hey, man, I want you to make your case for why Kentucky is going to unseat Georgia in the East. They've got Will Levis back, a lot of talent back, and now there's a little, I think it's kind of fun. John Calipari coming out saying, hey, we're a basketball school. But I've always said, if you're a football school and you want to have a good basketball program, your fans have got to get as upset after a football loss as they do after a basketball loss. So, Mitch, your thoughts on what's going on with Kentucky? And I think that's healthy that those guys are making those kind of comments.
Yeah. So what's going on with Kentucky? Let's see here. I think Calipari is wrong. I really do. I'm going to go ahead, just put that on the record right now. Yeah. I just don't think Calipari was in the right. I mean, you don't come out, you don't brag about another program that we're trying to compete with at the University of Kentucky, like Mark Stoops said, and then you bash the football program. I don't get it, Rob. I really don't. And Feinbaum said it best. It's time for Calipari to go. It's past time. I came on here. What was it when Kentucky lost to St. Peter's? Mid-March, I think I came on here.
Yeah,
it's time. Calipari has not done anything in almost a decade. He hasn't done these things since 2015. He lost some Elite Eight in 2017, but he hasn't really returned back to the second weekend since 2017. He really hasn't done much. In the SEC basketball landscape, I get it. A lot of great coaches have been brought in, but the SEC basketball landscape, when you look at Alabama, you look at Auburn, you look at Tennessee, you look at Mississippi State, you look at what all these other programs are doing, Kentucky's behind the 8 ball. And the thing about it is he sat there and complained, oh, we need facility upgrades. We need this. We need that. Kentucky's Joe Kraft Center is a $36 million facility. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. It's the nicest one in the SEC. They keep renovating it. They added a new locker room to it. They renovated Rupp Arena. But the thing about it is Calipari still wants to sit here and complain and complain and complain. But Mark Stoops, the football facility, has done what Calipari could not. He has won 4 straight postseasons. He has won 2 out of the last 3 10-win seasons, not counting the COVID year. The COVID year was a weird year for everybody. Kentucky didn't win 10 games, obviously. They would have gone undefeated. But the trajectory of Kentucky football is a lot better than Kentucky basketball right now. And honestly, I mean, when you look at Calipari's success overall, with his overall career at UMass and Memphis and Kentucky, he has underachieved everywhere he's been. He's had the talent, but he has not been able to cross that threshold. He's got 1 national championship. But when you have Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Darius Miller, those guys, it's hard not to win a national championship anywhere you have it. Especially with a freak athlete like Anthony Davis. So this whole Calipari thing, I think he was in the wrong, and I think Mitch Barnhart was cowardly in the way that he handled it.
Well, you've got to stand up, and Calipari is jealous, is what this boils down to. That's how I take on it. He lost to St. Peter's, and he's looking at what Mark Stoops is doing. This is year 10 for Mark Stoops. He's about to be the winningest coach in Kentucky football history. And Calipari is trying to take the heat off of himself because people are saying, look, you've got all these one and dones, all these high draft picks. And what have you done with that? 1 national championship in 13 years. Again, I think it's healthy. It's going to get the fans to really even more so back the football program. That is what I see is going to the takeaway from all of this stuff is, and Calipari needs to just go away and just coach his basketball team. And remember that Kentucky, all the big deals that are done, everything is based on football. As much as we love basketball can't compete. 70,000 people at, Kroger Field versus 23,000 at Rupp Arena. You can't compete with that. Okay. That's how it is, Mitch. And I'm glad, I agree with what you're saying on it.
Robin, what's crazy is a lot of people say, oh, Kentucky's a basketball school. For me personally, who grew up a Kentucky fan, grew up a Memphis football fan, I grew up going to Kentucky football games in Memphis football. Okay. My whole life, I've heard, oh, Memphis is a basketball school. Kentucky's a basketball school. Why do you care about the football program? Football program's nothing. I grew up going to those games. I was sitting in the sleet when Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt 42-0 back in 2012, Joker Phillips' last game there in Lexington. I was there. I was sitting up in the upper deck. And the same thing with Memphis. And that's why I get so defensive over this, is because I know the struggles and the heartache that these football programs have had to gone through to get to where they are. And it's very, very frustrating. And it's really demeaning what Calipari did to the football program. And if I was Stoops, I agree with him. I'd be madder than hell right now.
I don't blame him. Jimmy, you're looking at this. I know you got a question or two from Mitch, but Mitch, I think Mitch is right and I'm right. Are you going to be right too?
Well, I will say this. In 2018, Kentucky did go to the Sweet 16. And at that point, they had been very unhappy with their draw in the NCAA tournament. And as it turned out, in the opening weekend, all the top seeds got beat. And so Kentucky looked to have just a cruise into the Final Four. And then they had that horrible performance against Kansas State, which is a loss that, you just can't sugarcoat. And that was, I thought, the most embarrassing loss of Calipari's career at Kentucky before St. Peter's. And, so maybe it's just some built up frustration. I don't know what it could be, but I did not realize, though, that Kentucky already had the best basketball practice facility in the league. The way he was talking was that, they were just another kind of brick in the wall there as far as practice facilities were concerned. I did know that they had built it maybe in 2007, but I did not realize they had numerous renovations added on. So yeah, it's kind of mystifying as to why he would say anything, especially after that St. Peter's loss. I mean, I would definitely be letting sleeping dogs lie, and just mind my own business. So that made it also kind of surprising. As far as Barnhart is concerned, I think, he's grown really comfortable at Kentucky. I think he's been there now a better part of 20 years. So I think he may be in a position. He doesn't want it to say anything publicly to, I guess, get on the wrong side of basketball, because we know the board of trustees and, the fan base. I think they're of the attitude now it's okay for us to criticize the basketball program among ourselves, but definitely our head coach, who we're paying, I don't know, $8 or $9 million a year, should just keep those thoughts to himself and then go on. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it from afar. And again, yeah, I think Stoops has really handled this very well, because he correctly noted that his program is competing in the toughest conference in college football, and he's done a remarkable job there. And, he really fought for facilities and the athletic administration, not to mention the upper level administration, all the way up to the president, really supported him in the early years, and that faith has paid off.
Mitch?
Yeah, exactly, Jimmy. And, the thing about it is when you compare Kroger Field, what I call Commonwealth Stadium. Compare Commonwealth Stadium to Rupp Arena. Which is more of a dangerous environment to go into? What are opponents scared to go into? They're not scared to go in Rupp Arena. Rupp Arena is like going into a funeral home. It's quiet. It's old. It's decrepit. It's old. I'm not a big fan of Rupp Arena. But you go into Commonwealth Stadium on a Saturday night against LSU or any of those SEC big-time programs, and I guarantee you ain't coming out of there with a win. You're going to be lucky to come out of Commonwealth Stadium with a win when you got 70,000 people drinking the bourbon, eating all the hot browns and everything we got up there in Lexington. And I really, truly mean that, because when you go look at a Saturday night in Commonwealth Stadium, there's nothing like it in the SEC right now.
Well, they've worked hard to build that atmosphere, Mitch, and that's what you're seeing is just a change in the power up there. I mean, John Calipari has had a lot of success. It's not that he's old; it's just that he's stubborn in his ways. And I know Jimmy's pointed it out a lot. You know, we've probably seen the end of the one and dones with the transfer portal in basketball. But what I love is Kentucky. This is what I've said. This is how your football program rises above the ceiling that really a lot of the fans and the administration at Kentucky have placed on that program for decades. When people say we're a basketball school, you got to look what Bruce Pearl said about Auburn. We're an everything school. Hell, Auburn got to the tournament this year. They won the SEC championship with a bunch of small guards, which was nothing short of a miracle. Got to the College World Series for the second time in the last 3 seasons. That's pretty damn impressive. Football program, a lot of people writing them off. Who blew them out last year? I mean, people, you know what people do? They wake up and they just find the closest person to them that's a dumbass, and they repeat what they said. And you know what? They let other people write their narrative. What I love about Kentucky, Mitch, and we got a few more minutes before you got to go to a meeting, is this battle right here. This is, if you're a Kentucky football fan, this is the best thing to happen to the football program and to the basketball program, I would think, because it's going to put pressure on Calipari to produce probably that he's never had before.
Yeah, exactly, Rob. And, the thing about, like I always go back to being a Memphis fan because I went to Memphis and all that. It's the same thing with Memphis football. Everybody wants to crap on Memphis football. Tommy West and his last thing goes, look, if you don't invest in it, get rid of the damn thing.
I love it.
and I love Tommy West. I love Rich Brooks. I grew up literally watching Memphis football with D'Angelo Williams, Danny Wimper. I went to the New Orleans Bowl back in 2006, their first bowl game in over 35 years. Went to that, great experience. And then I went to the first Kentucky Bowl game in 2007 when they went to the Music City Bowl, because that's just how I grew up. I grew up a Kentucky and Memphis football fan. I cheer for the basketball program because I'm a fan of everything at the school.
Yeah.
But I grew up a Memphis and Kentucky football fan, sitting in stands where there were only about 500 people in the stands, and both teams were losing to Vanderbilt and Marshall.
Yeah. Well, you're what you're describing, you've seen a lot of bad football, but you stuck with it. Okay. And when the fans say, I'll support them when they're winning, well, that's ass backwards. Okay. You've got to support them if you want them to win. And that means financially and physically being there. You can't just, if the way you support a program is you never turn your back on them. Now, granted, you got to demand accountability if you want to have results.
Exactly, Rob. And that's the big thing that Mark Stoops says. He says, we're not backing down. We're not backing down. And I'm going to tell you right now, all the basketball Kentucky fans, I'm going to see them while they're sitting at home on December 5th. I'm going to see them in Catlanta cheering on my Wildcats as they take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in the SEC championship game, by God.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, Mitch, we got about a minute, but Mitch has got that kind of passion that a fan base has to have if you're going to make it to Atlanta. What's going on at Kentucky is, I don't think most people would have ever thought this would happen, but you ought to treat the word impossible as motivation. And this is nothing short of miraculous. Mitch, we got about 30 seconds. Tell people about your show, your podcast, and what's on your menu.
Yeah, themitchdavisshow.com and also The Mitch Davis Show on YouTube. Possibly using StreamYard from going forward. Got Vince Dooley, get the interview with that on Monday. Incredible interview. That is going to be released on Friday. We got Coach Charles Clark for the Memphis Tigers. Going to be released tomorrow. And just released about 2 minutes before I came on, Jared Redding, Inside the Rebels, Ole Miss football preview. A lot of exciting things happening down there in Oxford. Also got a recap of the FedEx St. Jude Championship coming out tomorrow, talking about all the things that I saw from the grounds there at TPC Southwood.
Great stuff, Mitch. Look forward to having you on next week. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Jimmy and I will ramble for a few minutes before our next guest, Dan Mathews.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you on this Wednesday morning. Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. They're open every Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Service department Saturday mornings, 7:30 to 12:30. 25 service bays. Trust me, I've got people coming over here from Memphis and surrounding areas that are being told a 2 and 3 week wait if you drop your car off right now. These folks work like a NASCAR pit crew at Talladega or Daytona. Austin Futrell and the crew will get you in and out. Check them out on the web, redriverfordtoyota.com. Okay. Jimmy, let's talk. We got a few minutes before Dan Mathews joins us. I think it's a healthy debate to have at Kentucky because there's never been anything like this to push Kentucky basketball. And now you got a football program that's on the verge of overshadowing Kentucky basketball on campus. I really believe that.
Well, I wouldn't say that until they can come up with a win over Georgia, and now they do have a really good opportunity in week 2 when they go down to Gainesville against a Florida team that will have already played in their opener, Utah, who is a solid favorite to win the Pac-12 this year, and they've got a really good quarterback in Cameron Rising. So I think most people will be picking Utah to win. So if Utah wins that game, Florida will be coming off a loss in their opener, but that could be a different story if obviously if they were able to pull the upset, or even if they didn't win, they were very competitive. We'll just have to wait and see, but that is a really good opportunity for Kentucky against a Gators program that has a new coaching staff, and the players are learning new schemes on both sides of the ball. So we'll just have to wait and see there. But if they were able to snatch a win in Gainesville, I mean, there's a really good chance they could be, undefeated when they go down to Oxford to play Ole Miss. So, it's a really good period for Kentucky football because they won 10 games twice in the last 4 years. And I think Mark Stoops realized that the timing was right for him to make a really strong public statement and let it be known that, his program, his players weren't going to be intimidated by the Kentucky basketball tradition. And on the other hand, Calipari was not in a position of strength because they're coming off maybe their most humiliating loss in Kentucky basketball history. So it's a really interesting dynamic. We'll just have to see how it goes. But I do think that most people realize that every school in the league, with the exception of Kentucky and maybe Vanderbilt, is a football school. But if you coach one of the other sports, just like Bruce Pearl, I think a lot of the coaches that are successful in basketball and baseball in the SEC can comfortably say that we're an everything school and everybody will understand what you're talking about. You're supporting your team. You're fighting for your players. But at the same time, everybody knows, who delivers the money because, stadiums seat 6-7 times more than basketball arenas do. It just comes down to that. And the same thing applies like for Auburn baseball. They've gone to 2 out of the last 4 College World Series. So it's fine for those coaches to say, hey, we're an everything school. So that is going to be an interesting dynamic going forward.
Yeah. And, you say with Auburn, it's 2 of the last 3 because there wasn't any World Series in 2020 because of the virus. So that's what's amazing. But I just think, we know how big Kentucky basketball is, but this is just an example of, to me, healthy competition. And I think the athletic director needs to get both those guys and sit them down and say, look, we're paying y'all a lot of money. You work for the Big Blue brand. And let's make sure we don't forget that. That's important. But look, man, you want to see the coaches. You typically see it at other schools. I mean, Bruce Pearl is at everything. Just watching an interview with Marty and McGee yesterday on SEC Network. Greg Sankey is everywhere. He's at volleyball games, at equestrian events. He's at swim meets, football games, basketball games, baseball games. That is important. The reason Greg Sankey's that way is because he came up through what? Not the Sun Belt, was it the Gulf South Conference? But he's been around a long time. And if you have a bottoms up approach where, you try to raise everybody up, that's good for your league. Look, Vanderbilt football, it's a brutal effort. I mean, last time they had a winning season was 2013. It's one of the toughest jobs in the country. But I'm not sure they've been committed to football for a long time at Vanderbilt. I mean, James Franklin had some success, but I look at some of the stuff that they've had go on up there. They don't have an athletics department. They run it through the intramurals, but Vanderbilt football now, Clark Lee's there. They're trying to do some different things. He's got a bunch of guys in their late 30s and early mid 40s on that staff. A lot of them have NFL experience. That's a tough sell. But if you can do it at Stanford, and they don't do it every year successfully in football, or Northwestern, okay, Notre Dame, Syracuse is not doing it anymore. Wake Forest. There's no excuse for what Vanderbilt doesn't get done in football. And what they provide is the greatest road venue for visiting teams in the SEC. I mean, if they're playing Alabama, or Tennessee, or Auburn, or Georgia, or Ole Miss, those fan bases will take over Dudley Field. and they do nothing to improve on it. The opposite of that is Kentucky. Like you said, sitting in the sleet in 2012, the last game of the Joker Phillips era before Mark Stoops came in there, getting beat 42-0. Kentucky made the commitment, Jimmy, to win in football, and it's paying off. If you don't have everybody on board, if you've got warring factions of your alumni base and your donor base who are not all pulling in the same direction, you have a mess on your hands. And those schools that have that, one year they can be in the national championship game, and the next year they're 8-5. Jimmy?
Yeah, well, with Vanderbilt, they have reinstituted the position of athletic director now for the last 4 or 5 years. To be in the SEC, you have to do that. And I know about a year and a half ago, the new president or chancellor, I'm not sure what the exact top position at Vandy is titled, but he announced, the big fundraising program of over $300 million. I don't know how far along that is, but I do believe, especially after the announcement that Texas and Oklahoma would be joining the SEC in the next 2 to 3 years, I'm pretty sure that the conference office has let it be known to the Vanderbilt administration that they had better get serious about football and start making some obvious moves to try to become competitive all the way from facilities up, especially with Dudley Field. Nothing's been done to that facility in probably 50 years. So they got to do something really quickly. And then, and the fact that, in the first year or two of the new TV agreement with the SEC, after Texas and Oklahoma join, each school will probably be getting $90 million. They really need to be using that money as a down payment to either a new football stadium or a drastically renovated stadium like Texas A&M has done over the past 10 years.
Yeah. Hey, what school since the year 2000, this millennium, Jethro, has won more football games than any other school? Oklahoma.
You mean?
In college football, I'm talking about Oklahoma, 239 wins.
Yeah, well, in the Big 12, they certainly are in position to be able to do that. You've got maybe 2 teams in the league that can beat you, every year, and you might play one heavyweight non-conference game. And of course, you had Bob Stoops, who just did a phenomenal job there. So that does make sense. And then Lincoln Riley was able to just keep that steamroller going, and I think Brent Venables is going to do the same thing because he was there, I think, 12, 13 years, and he knows the culture there. And again, being with Dabo during that time, he was away from Norman. He's obviously going to use a lot of ideas that he learned at Clemson. So I think they're going to continue that long streak of winning. So yeah, and then with Texas, I think now, and we've talked about it, they're going to be able to sell the same message as A&M to the 4- and 5-star prospects, not only in Texas, but throughout the Southeast. But especially in Texas, you can say, hey, you have a chance to play in the best division in college football, which if you have NFL dreams, it's going to test your ability. And if you're good enough to be successful in this division, then you will be able to attain your dream of being an NFL player. And yet you can go to school close to home. So I think Texas, I think once they get in the league, they're going to be competitive fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think they will be. But I look back at any program, you got to look at the schedule that they play year in and year out. You got to give Oklahoma credit. They've done a lot, but you're right. You got maybe one heavyweight non-conference game a year. We got a heavyweight executive producer of Southern Sports Today, the Chuck Oliver Show over in Atlanta. Dan Mathews on with us right now. And Dan, we were just talking about Oklahoma has won 239 games in this millennium. That's almost 11 games a season. They're going to be again for a lot different weekly road, games when they get in the SEC. I think those Oklahoma will be good. They're always going to be good. They're fixing to find out what it's like to have to play. You have no days off when you get in this league. Were you surprised? I know you grew up in Houston, big Astros fan. You know LSU really well. Were you surprised that Miles Brennan, not that he gave up football, but that he had fallen so far behind? Sounds like they've got a pretty serious competition going on with Garrett Nussmeier, Howard, Jay Daniels that came over from Arizona State. The quarterback competition is serious. And, I asked the question to Brian Kelly at SEC Media Days if he thought having Miles Brennan in that quarterback room would be a positive. Was he the face of LSU football? That was a question suggested that I asked by our friend Frank Duffy. And I said, I'll ask it because it's a great question. And he agreed with that, but how quickly things change. But I guess they won't be getting any more free lunches or free brunches at Owen Brennan's anymore. But I wish he would have been able to be the quarterback for all he's been through, but it just shows you, man, they must have some talent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he can still be the face of the program and not be the right guy for the job. I mean,
yeah.
I don't necessarily see the two, necessarily canceling each other out. I mean, I think that it's a situation where Brian Kelly really likes the guy, and I think he, and probably liked the player enough. I mean, if he didn't like the player enough, he would have told him, stay in the transfer portal. This isn't a fit for you. Go somewhere else. Instead, he convinced them to stay and try to compete. And, here's the thing too, is I understand that Brian Kelly from some of the LSU fan base, and I mean, the guy breathes, and some people get a visceral reaction to the guy.
Yeah.
It's just because of where he came from. So whatever, okay, fine. You didn't like the way he left the place, whatever. But he brought in Jaden Daniels because you had a guy in Miles Brennan who hadn't played quarterback in 2 years. And also, too, we know the type of quarterback that Brian Kelly wants to run his system. Ian Book, Brandon Wimbush, Malik Zaire, Everett Golson. I mean, you kind of get my drift there. You want somebody that's got, more athleticism and can probably use their legs a little bit more than Brennan could.
Yeah.
And also, too, I mean, what fits the player? So I think that he really felt like, at least with what the fit was for Mike Denbrock's offense and what he wants to do offensively, that, Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier are a better fit. And, for Miles Brennan, I don't think he comes to the decision lightly, but it's also, too, I think he probably comes to the decision now where he says, you know what, the pros, probably a long shot. Anything else, probably a long shot. Getting into camp with somebody else and being able to play, the same deal. Mm-hmm. He's been trying to do this for 6 years. I don't know the guy, but I think he probably just said, you know what, I'm an engaged guy. I've graduated. Let me just get on with my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to begrudge the guy for doing that, because you reach a certain point, playing sports where this thing has been your life, that some guys want to keep doing it. And some guys just say, once it's done, I'm finished. I'm done.
Well, I've known a lot of people like that played tennis. I mean, they got so tired of the screaming parents hanging on to the chain link fence, screaming at them and screaming at their own kids. It can burn you out, but he's got his degree. He's going to be an LSU guy forever. And I think people will respect that. Like we always say, if you go and you play 4 or 5 years at Georgia or Alabama, and you're on the scout team, that's the best you do is run out on the field for senior day to hug your parents. People will respect the fact that you went through that, that you're tough and that you're not a quitter. And that'll make them, very likely to hire you over somebody that transferred 3 times and never really accomplished anything. We don't even remember those people's names. Dan, like we were just talking about with Mitch Davis in the previous segment about comments made, and I really like what Mark Stoops is doing at Kentucky. I mean, everybody does. You got to respect that. But we're going to take a break. I want to get your thoughts about Cal and Stoops at Kentucky, football versus basketball. I think it's a healthy competition. You may not agree. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Dan, just what are your thoughts about that? Is it smart for this to be going on at Kentucky? If anything, I think it's going to motivate Kentucky basketball players, maybe not Cal, but the players to play better, because they're going to be, getting a lot of good-natured, ribbon from their friends on the football team.
Well, I mean, what do they say? No news or no publicity is bad publicity, and they got a good amount of it over the weekend. I think for Calipari, I mean, number one, you've got the AD who is, during all of his comments that he made over the weekend, saying we're not going to be an entitled department. And a lot of people took that as a shot at John Calipari of, what else do you need with Kentucky basketball? You've got a great arena in Rupp Arena. You've got great practice facilities, dorms for the players, just, everything that you need. And also, too, I mean, I will give Mitch Barnhart credit. It was kind of a message to both of them of saying, you guys will be supported here. That's not going to be the problem.
Correct.
I think what has kind of been the problem is it's from the top. I mean, you have Calipari saying what he said. And, Mark Stoops, I don't begrudge him at all, because it's the thing with him, I think, is he's kind of, with Cal, is saying, hey, man, we're supposed to support each other here.
Correct.
And we're supposed to be about the athletic department. Why are you, in so many ways, kind of taking a shot at us? And, I said last year that when Kentucky, they finished 8-4, whatever they finished, their fan base was kind of disappointed in it. And I said, the happiest person about it was Mark Stoops, because he said, good, I'm glad that people care about football around here, because that's what I want. I want them to care. And Kentucky's facilities are top notch for football. I don't think enough people realize what they've been able to do over the last few years that Mark Stoops has been there. I think the biggest problem that I have is twofold with Mitch Barnhart. We're really three. Number one, he really should have taken a Greg Sankey approach to this, and immediately. And look, he might have done it. I'm sure if you ask Matt Jones or anybody that covers Kentucky, Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, if you ask him, then I'm sure he probably did reach out to Calipari and to Stoops and said, hey, guys, cool it. Like, no more public comments, no more anything. Cool it.
Yeah.
We're going to handle this in-house. Kind of like what we saw Greg Sankey do with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, where he immediately got on the phone with both of them and said, this is not going to go past this now. Jimbo, you got your word. Nick, you got your word. We're going to leave it here. And that's not what we're going to do in this conference. I don't think he's going to do that with an individual school. So that's number one. Number two, then Mitch Barnhart's talking about other schools chirping about his program, which I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't see anybody from an official capacity from any other schools say anything and saying,
Yeah.
oh, now we're going to compete like hell. Okay, fine. I get you got to fire up your fan base. That's number two. And then number three, to go after his own media, basically saying you're making a bigger deal out of this than anything, and saying, oh, we had track athletes that won championships and set records. Did you guys write anything about that? And the Kentucky Sports Radio guys had the receipts. They said, yeah, we did, about 70 stories. So, this isn't the media creating this. This is John Calipari speaking into a microphone. When he speaks into a microphone, people react. And then, of course, you have another major Power 5 program football coach saying, that's not cool. Don't talk about my program. Don't talk about what we are and the work that we're trying to do and the things that we've done and the goals that we have accomplished here already at Kentucky. That's not for you to decide, and that's not for you to talk about. So I think that just from the leadership perspective of Mitch Barnhart, this should have been handled a lot differently. And don't go after other people. This is a Kentucky problem. It's not anybody else's issue. The number one thing you should have done, and look, I think that it's also too, a lot of these guys are so bad at what I guess we could call crisis management, Rob.
Yeah.
Is that just say, I'm addressing it with Cal and Mark. I'm going to leave it at that. And if it keeps coming, you just say, guys, you can keep asking the same questions. I'm just going to give you the same response. I'm going to address it with both coaches. If you want to ask about anything else, we can talk about something else.
Yeah. Well, you see it going on at schools. I mean, I see it at Auburn. People say Auburn's a basketball school now because the football team was 6-7 last year. But really, you've got what'll destroy your program quicker than anything is apathy. And I've always said for decades, I've said this to everyone that would listen. If you want to have a great football or basketball program at a school where one of the two sports is dominant and the other one struggles, until the fans get as upset at Kentucky about losing in football as they do in basketball, you're never going to get anywhere. Kentucky's won 10 games twice in the last 4 years. This past season, they were 10-3. Okay. That's pretty impressive. And they got beat soundly by Georgia. Okay, they're trying to get where Georgia is, but Stoops, this is his 10th year. He's about to become the winningest coach there. Give him some credit. Jimmy, I know you got some questions for Dan Mathews, executive producer of Southern Sports Today and the Chuck Oliver Show.
Well, I wanted to get back to LSU's preparations for the upcoming season, and I guess a big reason for the Brennan announcement was that during their first scrimmage that he did not scrimmage with the ones. He was with the twos the whole time, and Jaden Daniels was the guy getting all the snaps. And it appears that he's going to be the starter just because of his experience. I think he started 29 games at Arizona State, and clearly Kelly feels comfortable with him. But Kelly also mentioned that Garrett Nussmeier didn't participate in the scrimmage due to a minor injury, but he did say that had he been available, he would have also been practicing with the one. So I'm guessing that Brennan was maybe just really frustrated because he's overcome 2 or 3 really serious injuries that have just taken so much of his opportunity away to be the starting quarterback. Because when he did start, he had some pretty good numbers. So I know it's just been a really tough time for him. But from what you are hearing, it just seems to me that Daniels obviously gives you the great running threat. Maybe he's not the passer that maybe you need in the SEC as far as stretching defenses vertically. And then you've got Nussmeier that everybody agrees probably is the future of the program. And he also kind of has that it factor. He's a true dual threat quarterback. And it appears that they clearly also want to get him some action. But again, I think Kelly wants to go out there and start the season with the veteran quarterback who's not likely to make mistakes due to his experience. But I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Jimmy, there's a lot to go through there. Where do you want me to start?
I thought there was a question in there somewhere.
Yeah. Just who do you think will be the starter? And then, the fact that Nussmeier has been practicing with the ones, does he get a shot early if Daniels during game situations is struggling, or do you think they're just going to, let Nussmeier learn the new offense kind of at his pace, and they don't want to rush him, but then when they do feel he's ready, they'll put him in the deep water?
I think that, they still want the competition to go on because I think, honestly, Brian Kelly doesn't know. I think if nothing else, from what I understand, they're going to scrimmage this afternoon. So, maybe that's an opportunity for Garrett Nussmeier if the ankle feels good for him to be able to give it a shot and see where he's at. Maybe we get a starter after today. Maybe this goes to Florida State and we see, one guy get a chance and then another guy get a chance. I don't know. You bring up a good point about Jaden Daniels. He's got a lot of, starting experience at Arizona State and did some really good things at Arizona State. I think that's tempting for you. You brought up 29 games started, so that probably gives them a little bit of a leg up. But I also think, too, that, it's one of those things. We heard Lane Kiffin, a week ago, say, there's two things that go into a quarterback battle. Number one, it's so important to pick the right guy. It's so important because as a program as a whole, it sets you on the right path. For the individual, it's incredibly crucial because it's not like, take baseball, for example. You got a guy in your starting rotation that hasn't had a very good year. He's had a string of really bad starts. Maybe you skip him. Maybe, you send him down. Any of those types of things. And it's kind of understood, all right, hey, I need to work on some mechanical issues, whatever it might be. I'm just not right now. You can't do that with quarterback because when you pull the quarterback, you're signifying to everybody there's a new direction and there's going to be a new voice. And that's a reset for the entire program. So I think that that's probably part of it as well, is that Brian Kelly wants to be as sure as he possibly can that he's got the right guy in Jaden Daniels. And I think that that's why he wants to give Nussmeier a chance. There's a reason why Garrett Nussmeier is still in this thing. He had a really good spring, and obviously he made the most of the summer workouts. Not to say that Miles Brennan or Walker Howard didn't, but at least in the eyes of Brian Kelly, Mike Denbrock, and the offensive coaching staff, he is still a guy that they look at as a possibility to give him a chance to win. And you're going to give that guy a look. So if he's the starter against Florida State, then I think it's going to be pretty much well known across the board. He earned it. If Jaden Daniels is the starter against Florida State, it's a deal.
Yeah.
I think they want to exhaust their options.
Dan, looking around, here's another school. I'm curious. Florida State. You get a chance. You and Chuck Oliver talk with a lot of coaches, a lot of people that cover different schools. Florida State, Mike Norvell is coming up on year 3. He had great success at Memphis. People thought, okay, wow, if he can do that at Memphis, win 12 games and go to the Cotton Bowl like they did in the 2019 season, certainly at Florida State, it will happen. They are recruiting better, but look, their facilities are way behind what now with Florida opening the Hivner Center. They're way behind. They don't have the money. The ACC checks are, very small compared to what the SEC is getting today and what they're going to be getting in a couple of years. Where do you see Florida State football ending up at the end of the 22 season? You see them winning 9 or 10 games, or are they going to be lucky to be 500?
I think they're going to be closer to 500 than they're going to be 9 or 10 games. I think they're going to be an improved football team. I expect them to make a bowl. I think that Jordan Travis is a much improved quarterback. I know losing the offensive lineman from Wisconsin definitely hurt because they don't have enough depth right now to be able to stomach such a loss. That's why they're going into the transfer portal to try to find guys that can be meaningful contributors in that position group. But, you've got a good running group. The defense returns a lot, so that's going to help. I think that LSU game is really crucial for them. I think that that's a game that number one, I think I've mentioned it on here before. I didn't realize it until talking with Brendan Sinone of Knowles 247 that they haven't started a season 1-0 since 2016. That's almost unheard of there. Like, that doesn't even sound right. That It's been almost 5 years, over 5 years, since they've won a season opener. And they're going to get to do it this year because unless they just completely fall flat on their face against Duquesne, they're going to win that game in week 0.
Yeah.
And in that LSU game, I mean, I don't necessarily see them getting outclassed and just blown out of the building. I don't think they're going to win that game. I think LSU is the better football team, even with all of the transfers and the program turnover that they've had. I still think LSU is the much better team. There's a lot of talent on that roster. But for Florida State, I do think they're going to take a step forward. And I think that it's going to be one of those things, for the program that the fan base, if they go 6-6, 7-5, is going to want changes.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a real, problem for the athletic department, where they're going to say, look, we just hired a new baseball coach. We're trying to overhaul the athletic department. We're trying to galvanize support. We're trying to do all those things. But the fan base is going to look at them and say, hey, there's a guy in Jackson, Mississippi that's got ties to this place. Don't you think that he could probably bring a lot of excitement to our program? And, they look at what's happening in Coral Gables, and they see how excited everybody is with a new head coach, a new AD, John Ruiz, and the name, image, and likeness efforts that they're trying to make there at Miami, and the facility improvements, the new locker room that they have there. That's number one. You mentioned at Florida, the new football-only facility that they have. Florida State fans are going to look around because college football fans get jealous. They're going to look around and say, I want that too. Like, why can't we have that here? And this is an AD, too, that if it's not at least a bowl game this season, then I'd be very surprised if Mike Norvell's still the head coach at Florida State. I think that they look at it and say, we need to raise the profile of this program, need to get back to competing for championships. And I think that probably there would be enough support from enough of the influential alumni to say, give Deion Sanders a chance. And let's see where this goes. Because somebody's going to give Deion Sanders a chance. I mean, what he's been able to do at Jackson State and the attention that he's brought that program and being able to get the top commit in the country to say yes to Jackson State. Inquiring minds want to know what would he do at a program that has even more resources and more tradition and more of a brand name that he could be able to sell, along with the fact that, he's Deion Sanders.
Yeah. Well, look, we run out of time, and I know you got to get going to the show, but and I want to talk with you next week about another program that's a mystery is Georgia Tech, right there in the middle of Atlanta. You think just about the NIL opportunities, and Jeff Collins is going to be fighting coaching, I say, for his job this year. So, I mean, great stuff, Dan, as always. Tell people how they can follow you, and look forward to having you on again soon next week.
Yeah, that might be a 2-segment conversation next week. That's a long one. That might be a dissertation. Find me on Twitter at Dan Mathews, ATL, 1T and Mathews. Find us on Twitter, us being the Chuck Oliver Show, at Chuck Oliver Show. And then, of course, like and subscribe. Download the Southern Beat podcast this week. We got the news that Atlanta is going to be getting the 2025 College Football Playoff National Championship game. I'm going to talk with Dan Corso of the Atlanta Sports Council about how they were able to get that and all the excitement from that. And then Wilson Alexander from the Advocate, going to join me on this week's edition of the Southern Beat, because there's a lot to talk about in Baton Rouge with that LSU program, much more than just Miles Brennan, but that's going to be a huge part of the conversation as well. But Chuck Oliver Show today, 11 to 1. Please tune on in.
Hey, thanks so much, Dan Mathews. Great stuff as always. We'll take a quick break. Be back for hour number 2 with Johnny Ballpark Franks.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here, hour number 2. And that's interesting stuff, Jimmy, what Dan was saying about Florida State. And I just see it as there's not a commitment there. They don't have the money. They don't have the boosters that are willing to pay up. And it just makes what Bobby Bowden and then Jimbo Fisher, rode the coattails of that for a few years. And then he started to struggle. But A&M came along, offered him a 10-year, $75 million deal with, unlimited amounts of money to put into the football program. But Florida State, if they don't watch it, they're going to end up like Georgia Tech. You have every resource imaginable, and then you look over at Gainesville, what they're building. Look what they're doing at Miami, and Miami has been notoriously cheap. I mean, when you have Eugene V. Krabs as your, I don't know what that noise is in the background, but when you've got Eugene V. Krabs as your athletic director, a cheapskate, don't expect great things, because it's purely we're living in a material world for athletic facilities. I mean, $90 million, $100 million on these football only facilities. For what? Are you going to breathe for them, brush their teeth, scrub them? I mean, this is nuts. But everybody out there, well, if we don't do it, our competitors will have it. And the football facilities, they don't have them at Florida State. And you look at the trajectory of that program. How in the world can Jimbo go from what he had going after 36 years of Bobby Bowden, and now their program, Dan thinks, hey, they'll be lucky to be 500. I mean, if they're only 500 this year, and that's year 3 under Mike Norvell, the questions are going to be asked. Hey, he was able to win at Memphis, which was a program given up for dead. I mean, Justin Fuente did a great job of getting the program building at Memphis. But he left and went to Virginia Tech, and he did not have success. Mike Norvell got the Memphis program going up. He's gone to Florida State, and he is struggling. And just because you're in the state of Florida with all that talent doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win a lot of games. And that just goes here with our guest, Johnny Ballpark Franks, who's an alumnus of Florida State University. And we're talking about, we just had Dan Mathews on, Johnny, from Southern Sports Today with Chuck Oliver over in Atlanta, about Florida State. That's a program. I was actually there in March of '76 with my dad when they brought in Bobby Bowden, when they built that thing really from scratch. Daryl Mudra, not a great coach or whatever, but Bobby Bowden had an incredible run. Then Jimbo took that momentum, and then by the time he left, they were a 500 program, and they've just struggled since then. And the facilities, Jimbo talked about the lack of commitment and all. How did they? Why is nothing seeming to change? I watched what Mike Norvell did here in Memphis and was like, this guy can flat out coach. Give him the resources and the fertile recruiting ground that Florida State has. He'll win a bunch of games. But in year 3, what are the expectations?
I think the expectations, Florida State's heading in the right direction. I still will never understand how Florida State lost to Jacksonville State last year.
I know.
And especially in that crazy ending. But I love, the quarterback Jordan Travis. And, the biggest reasons why Florida State started going downhill, first of all, they suffered that key injury to their quarterback in that opening game. Remember, in 2017, Alabama #1, Florida State #3. So not only, it was a tight game in the second half, and then Florida State loses their quarterback. But the reason why Florida State started declining is they couldn't get quality offensive linemen, and they were too stubborn to make changes there as far as with the coaching staff.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those areas that never fully recovered. But I loved what some of the things that I saw last year out of this Florida State team. And I've already said it, although I'm already picked them to upset LSU in week 1. In week 0, remember, they play Duquesne, so they get the luxury of having one game under their belt. LSU doesn't have a game in week 0. And so Labor Day weekend, I think Florida State goes into New Orleans in the Superdome, pulls off the win. I'm looking at an 8 or 9 win season for Florida State this year.
Yeah, and that was the question I asked was, do you see them, Dan, as that 9 or 10 win? Because they talked to a lot of Florida State people on their show, or a 500 team. He says, I see them more as 500. Now, it's interesting. I'm looking, they've certainly brought in some talent. And I know Marcus Woodson can coach. Kenny Dillingham can call some plays on offense. But I just look at Florida State. Look what they have done in the past. 87 to 2000. That run of 14 straight years, never finishing outside the top 4, is proof of what you can do. And those kind of brands like Florida State are like bonfires. The next morning you get up, all you need to do is put a few pieces of kindling on there and some paper and just blow on it, and whoosh, there it goes again. You saw that last year with Notre Dame and Florida State. You saw that environment down there, Doak Campbell Stadium. And I don't know if it's the fact that Gene Deckerhoff is retiring from Florida State as the voice of the Seminoles, but they got to get their mojo back, Johnny.
Well, Rob, I think you make the same mistake that I keep on making, is that I like to live a little bit in the luxury of the past as far as reminiscing of good old college football and the way it used to be. When Tennessee, Florida, for example, used to mean not only the front runner for an SEC championship, but a team that's going to be in the position to maybe win a national title. Those days are gone. You forget the key thing now, and all you got to do is look at and follow the trail. Where's the money? Yeah. So what Florida State did in the past, what Tennessee has done in the past, what these programs have done in the past, it doesn't make a difference anymore. It's who has the money to buy the players. And let's just throw it out there. Name, image, and likeness is buying the players. It's now legal to be able to do that.
Yeah, and Jimbo Fisher did not like it, when Nick Saban made those comments. But, in reality, I always thought NIL was something, once you had been at a school for a while and you had done something, then you could start to profit off of your name, image, and likeness. When you were taking kids from high school who haven't done a damn thing at your college, that is pay for play. There's no other way around it. Call it what it is. Doesn't mean it's bad, but that's what it is. I don't like it.
Well, here's the thing too with Nick Saban, and Nick Saban pointed this out, which was really probably the best statement I heard during SEC media days. Hey, look, we're one of the haves. We're not a have-not. We're one of the haves. So what Nick Saban is talking about, and what he said about Jimbo Fisher, what did Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M do to earn the position to be now in a national championship hunt? Did they go out and work hard to get there? Did they earn it? No. Remember, Alabama was winning national championships before name, image, and likeness.
Correct.
Texas A&M was able to jump now to the forefront because of what? They've got the money. And look at Texas they'll be able to pull off the same thing. Now, you still got to coach players when they arrive in these campuses, but it certainly helps, and it's a lot easier to win games when you've got 4 stars and 5 stars coming in, when you have, other than, and comparing that to trying to develop 3 stars or 4 stars.
Yeah, good point. Jimmy, questions for Johnny Ballpark Franks. I love it. The Ump in Huntsville. I heard that show Monday. I like it.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, Johnny, I think it just comes down to having a solid relationship in your administration, all the way from the president down to the athletic director. And we all know over the last 15 years, Florida State has had a musical chairs situation in regard to presidents and athletic directors. And in my mind, it's just so critical for those guys to be on the same page. And it's not a secret that during Jimbo's last 3 or 4 years at Florida State, he was going back and forth with administration officials about the facilities, and the administration officials just didn't seem to be concerned about it. And that's the reason Jimbo's been at A&M for 5 years now. And I think you got to get that fixed. And I think really, in fairness to Norvell, the first year he came to Florida State, you had that just poisonous situation, I think, with Marvin Wilson. He was a cancer in that locker room. And it just really makes things really difficult when your locker room is, not in let's say, a harmonious mode there. There was obviously a lot of factions. Anytime you have a coaching change, you've got to be careful, because there's going to be groups of players that were recruited by the previous coach, and the new coach has to win those guys over and so forth. So, that first year was pretty much just I'm not saying hopeless situation, but let's just say very difficult to overcome. And then last year, as you said, I think Travis has really developed into a really nice player. Now, the one thing that concerns me, though, about this year with Florida State, after that Duquesne game, I mean, those next 6 games, you can't look at that schedule and just say, hey, that's a win, just by looking at it.
Well, at least they get a break. After the LSU game, Florida State gets the week off on September 10th weekend. And so because of that, I think it gives them a chance to regroup. It's not like they have to go back to back to back to back to back. They get that break before, as you mentioned, they have to go to Louisville, then BC, and then the Wake Forest game. To me, the first week of October is the game I have circled. That and for whatever reason, FSU scheduled that as homecoming, because to me, that's really the only true L. That meaning, I just don't see Florida State winning that game of those games you're talking about, Jimmy. I mean, all the other games, Florida State has a chance to win. We don't know what's going on at North Carolina State, especially with the quarterback situation. So, but that, to me, the Wake Forest game in that group of games you're talking about is really the only one that's like, yeah, that's going to be an L. I'm going to put it right now, L against Florida State.
Well, I will say this, though, Johnny. We don't know Hartman's status, the quarterback, because, they don't know if he's going to be out 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. They haven't really divulged much of anything about the nature, if it's an injury or an illness. We don't know. But my point was that those games, at the very least, are probably going to be 50-50. It's just not a game that you can just chalk up as a win. I think they would rather be playing Georgia Tech maybe in that open date after LSU. But
you know what I'd like to do, Jimmy, and you bring up some excellent points. You're talking about that Florida State situation, the just after Willie Taggart, and even including Willie Taggart, but after he leaves, I would love, coaches, believe it or not, like to talk about losses, because they build on losses. They build on missed opportunities, and they want to use those missed opportunities to lead to winnable opportunities in the future. I would love to talk to Nick Saban one day about 2007. I would love to talk about Florida State and Mike Norvell, especially if we can see a resurgence of Florida State under Mike Norvell. But look, I have never seen a book and never really heard a lot of coaches talk about, the fact that of lost locker rooms. I've heard stories with boosters on plane rides for Florida State coming back from road games, and the fact there was nothing about a team concept about Florida State, Willie Taggart, and after that. And that's what Florida State is still recovering from. And just like 2007, although you look at the fact that Alabama was in some really close games against some really good opponents, they still finished 7-6 that year. But it was a team where you had folks just not buying into Nick Saban. You had upperclassmen thinking about themselves and not as a team concept. I would love to see a study in interviewing some of these coaches who had to go through adversity in those situations before leading a program in the right direction.
Well, how hard is it if you don't have everybody pulling in the same direction? And you look, we had Nathan Perotti on here a couple of weeks ago, former player at Arkansas. He just finished. He was a special teams player, defensive back out of Lake Travis High in Austin, and 2 years under Chad Morris, and then the next 2 years with Sam Pittman. He said, we had a very toxic locker room when Chad Morris was the coach. He goes, there were guys that didn't bother them to lose. And Sam Pittman comes in, and the first meeting, he says, look, everybody that I need to win here at Arkansas is in this room right here, right now. And if you believe in what we're doing and what we're going to do, we believe in you, or we wouldn't have you here. We can accomplish great things. If you don't have that kind of buy-in, it's a struggle. And then you got outside interferences with boosters at different schools that start lies and salacious rumors because the coach that they wanted didn't get the job, and someone else comes in that they didn't know and they can't control. These are selfish narcissists. Remember one thing about narcissists. They write their story right before, everybody's eyes, and they make up the lies as they go along. Eventually, somebody calls them out. But if you don't have a program with a buy-in of 100% or close to it, it's very difficult to accomplish great things. I'm talking conference and national championships.
I mean, the biggest and toughest decision. Now, I don't agree with what John Calipari did when he took the job at UK, where he calls in players from the year before saying, you transfer because you're just not going to be able to play for me. Now, if they were bad apples, bad seeds, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But in that particular situation, if guys are doing everything they are supposed to be doing, maybe they're not good enough in John Calipari's eyes and a coach in that situation. But it's not their fault that they got evaluated improperly. Now, however, if you're bringing a player situation where they are, they're bringing down a locker room, their attitudes, and they are the alphas of the locker room, and they are bringing a negative cloud every day to practice, to games, to their atmosphere, then I really believe, I think coaches make the biggest mistakes. They try to feel like they can coach up players like that and not give up on them. In some cases, especially when you're first starting a program and you know where you want the direction of the program to be, sometimes you've got to delete some players like that. It may cost you a couple of wins during the course of the upcoming season. But for the long run, if you're trying to put a foundation in, you really have to have the attitude, it's my way or the highway, especially at the college level.
Yeah. We're about to go to a break. We're going to talk about that when you come back, because again, history, traditions, and heroes, that's the theme of this show. I understand you've always got to be evolving, but you are not where you are today without the past, but you've got to be thinking forward. You got to be innovative. You got to assess, analyze, overcome, push through, and execute, which we'll do right after this break in 1 minute.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you. And the buy-in we're talking about. Jimmy Hodge, Johnny Ballpark Franks, along with me, Rob Brown, talking about.
Hey,
that.
Rob, can I say something
Yeah.
that I love, by the way, that second coming back from commercials.
Yeah.
Did you write that? Talk Sporty with me? I love that.
That is a friend of ours, his daughter, who lived out in California for several years as an actress, and she's very talented, Shannon. And I'll tell you one thing, she came up with that. I think that was the idea of Audrey, wasn't it? That came up with that. Yes, my wife and producer. She came up with the Talk Sporty to me. So maybe we'll get some T-shirts made like that. But
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah, that's part of the buy-in. And let's talk about the buy-in. But I want to say something that if you don't have it, I just don't see how you can go forward. And if you go in the locker room, and Jimmy knows this from playing college football and baseball, and I know this from sports and business myself. If they're saying, when I get my guys in here, things are going to be good. I mean, they're telling you right there, you don't matter. And something Audrey says, if you got to tell people that they matter if you want them to work hard for you, don't you?
Rob, here's the thing. When I hire you to be the head coach of my university, guess what? The guys in that locker room are your guys.
That's right.
You know, when I hear a coach, if I ever hear a coach saying, wait till I get my guys, or if I hear somebody talking about a program, wait till he gets his guys in there. The guy, when he takes the job, those are his guys.
You are correct, sir. I totally agree with that. And people try to get away with saying the other way, and it backfires on them every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. Nick Saban's first year at Alabama, 2007, that spring, that was the first year in modern times that Alabama did not have a player picked in the NFL draft.
That's right.
And that season, he did not say a word about the talent level. He knew what he had, and he knew he just had to get through the season with it. And on top of that, the NCAA made this ridiculous ruling the day before the Tennessee game, in which they suspended 7 players over this book situation that involved like 150 athletes over 15 sports, and previous programs that had been penalized for that same situation had just gotten a slap on the wrist. And man, they put the wood to Alabama. I think they had, and it was 4 starters. They missed like 4 games, and they still did beat Tennessee the next day, but it really put them in a slide there, which was a big part of them losing, 6 games. But still, Saban didn't complain. He knew what he had to do. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget when they played LSU. I was there, that 2007 national championship team. Alabama was up on them 27-17 late in the third quarter. LSU came back to win. But in my opinion, out of the 22 starters each team had on the field, offensively and defensively, I think Alabama had maybe 1 player that would have started for LSU out of those 22 spots.
How ironic too about that punishment in 2007, because now it would not be punishment because they wouldn't have to do it. But basically, players, you get a book allotment, and so some players were going in getting a book that they didn't have a class for, and then reselling it to a classmate at a reduced amount of things. That's along the lines of what we're talking about. It wasn't like we were getting thousands and thousands of dollars from the boosters to these players. It was basically a book fraud situation. It was just stupid looking back at it.
Yeah.
And Yeager had made a statement when the original penalties were announced, saying, we consider this matter closed. And then 2.5 years later, they take all those wins away. It was
absolutely. Well, it's just like at Florida State when Bobby Bowden lost all of those wins. It was basically an open book art appreciation class, and the grad assistant teacher, it wasn't even a true professor, was throwing out the answers to everybody. And it wasn't just athletes. Everybody was getting the answers, and it was an open book. I mean, I remember to this day Coach Bowden talking to me about it, because he was here for the Music City Bowl that year against Kentucky, and we were talking about it, and it was just so frustrating for him. It's like, it's an art appreciation class, and it was an open book class, and the players still got the penalties.
Well, look, there are no easy classes. I remember my sophomore year at Auburn, I took a class. Someone said, take an elective. I needed it. The hours, music appreciation. And everybody over at the house was, oh, it's clap for credit. It's a no-brainer. I unfortunately got the teacher who came in and said, I know that in the past, this has been a class that you take to get some easy hours. That's going to change. We're going to learn about Mozart, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky. And I mean, it was punishing. It was so hard. So
maybe, Bob, but maybe so. But here's the thing: if you have a question about Mozart, what do? You go to the back in the index and look where Mozart is, and that's how you find the answer.
Exactly.
It's not rocket science.
I know. I'm just being silly. Just saying. I do remember. Here's the thing: I've actually seen somebody fail an open book test. So some scary things that you can see out there.
I think maybe the best story ever, though, was how Jim Herrick got fired as basketball coach at Georgia.
Good point.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up.
His son, Jim Herrick Jr., taught a summer class, and it involved, I think, basketball in general. And they were trying to get a player, Tony Cole, he was from Louisiana, eligible. And in the class, the questions were, I think it was a 10 or 12 question test. One of them was, what conference are the Georgia Bulldogs a member of?
One of the other ones, Jimmy, is how much is a 3-point shot worth?
Yes, if it's made.
Yeah, if it's made. How much is a 3-point shot is it worth?
It was awesome, and they published all 12 questions in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution sports page. It was awesome.
Well, you'll see some, that is scary though. If people don't know those kind of questions and they don't know the answer to those, and I'm sure there are people out there that don't. I
totally derailed, Rob. I totally derailed this segment. We went off in an area I know we weren't even trying to bring up.
But look, let's get back onto this thing about the buy-in. Okay, when you bring in a new coach, Mario Cristobal, look at him at Miami. He played for the Canes 86-90 down there with Dennis Erickson. Tommy Tuberville was there. Dave Wannstedt, Pete Carroll, Coach O was on that staff. Man, those are glory days. That's what
it's like kind of ironic because it's not really, we talk about how things are different now in college football. Well, things aren't really different from the 80s and down in South Florida with the Hurricanes of Miami and where we stand today because players are able to get paid now.
Yeah.
And they were able to get paid back then too.
Now, you think some of that was actually going on down there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Dave Broward in Palm Beach counties.
And Kelvin Sampson got fired as basketball coach in Indiana for texting high school recruits. I mean, you hear that story now, and it's just ludicrous. Well, I mean, it was. I don't know why that was illegal back then, but again, just like a lot of things now, at least over time, some of these NCAA power brokers realize that, hey, you got to apply common sense to the changing times here. You're not gaining an advantage.
Well, they were doing it because they wanted to give. First of all, it was during dead periods, and secondly, they wanted to give some of these student athletes from the high schools a little bit of a break instead of getting just swarmed all the time with all these different text messages and all these new ways of being able to communicate. So that was the biggest reasons. It wasn't necessarily these coaches, if you can outwork somebody else. It was also a way of, giving some of these student athletes a break and allowing them to be high school students as well.
Yeah, well, I tell you, though, it's so funny. I was reading a book. I can't remember. I think it might have been a Feinstein book, but they were having a meeting of ACC basketball coaches.
Right.
And during, I guess, their meetings in Destin in May or whenever it was. And Bobby Crimmins, Bobby Crimmins is one of the most awesome guys ever. Yeah. He comes in, and he's so excited about a player he had seen the day before and so forth. And then Dave Odom innocently said, well, Bobby, you know, this is a dead period. And right when Dave said that, the entire room of coaches jumped all over Dave because they knew Bobby didn't mean anything by it. And Bobby was one of those guys, he really didn't know. and he wasn't really doing it intentionally or anything like that. So certain guys, when they break a rule, you know, everybody knows what kind of guy is. He's not doing that for sinister purposes, you know. So there's all kinds of great stories like that.
And Dale Brown used to always say that the NCAA rule book and the you know, the 10 Commandments said it's simpler. That, you know, the NCAA rule book was about 6 inches thick. And they just, you know, and remember, the NCAA has always been able to nail people strictly on hearsay, innuendo, rumors, and circumstantial evidence. They do not have subpoena power, yet they have ruined a lot of universities and people's reputations. And I think if we go back, guys, and we're to look at some of the probations that have been handed down to schools over the years, it's the schools that are turning them in that need to be investigated themselves, typically. Because
the bottom line, if you ask any coach, most coaches will bend the rules, and their attitude is, well, everybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can just, I don't care who you are. You know, I don't think there's a coach out there that hasn't bent rules, and some obviously more than others. I don't think there's a pristine coach out there at the Division I level in football, for example.
No, there's not.
They're just not. And you can throw Nick Saban under that. You can throw all those coaches. You know, you can't tell me, even Bobby Bowden. You know, everybody has made mistakes. Some have done it intentionally, but you can't tell me there's a coach out there that's done it the right way and made all the right decisions with the players' best interest in mind and with the protecting the, you know, because remember, in practice, what we're told every day, make sure you don't do anything to embarrass yourself, your teammates, the university, your family, and yet they always do it. So, but as far as these coaches, and the bottom line is, it's still about them protecting their legacy, protecting their family first and foremost before the university and beyond.
Yeah, no, you're right, Johnny. We have run out of time for this segment. We're about to be joined. We are going to be talking about it with Olin Buchanan with TexAgs.com. But tell people how they can follow you, about your show. Hey, folks, check it out Monday afternoons on the UMP at 5 o'clock in the PM Central from the smartest city in the state of Alabama, Huntsville.
Thank you so much. You can keep up with everything that I do just simply going to my Twitter account, and feel free to follow me. I'll follow you back as well at BP Franks Show.
Hey, great stuff as always. True Grit Journalism is making a comeback because Johnny Ballpark Franks was on our show. Thanks again. We'll do it again next week.
You guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
All right, you do too. Man, I tell you, Jimmy, you go back and you start looking at history, traditions, and heroes. That's what's going to save college football is people are going to fight to save these brands. Olin Buchanan out in College Station, TexAgs.com. Olin, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. We have been having a lot of fun talking about this upcoming college football season. Practice is underway, and Jimbo, you know, he's got a quarterback situation. Who's it going to be? Haynes King? Is it going to be Max Johnson? Whatever. Everybody's talking about that, but you've got offense, defense, special teams. Let's get the takeaway from practice up through the first couple of weeks.
Well, you probably know this, but the media is not allowed in practice.
I know, but you can see the stretching.
So, yeah. And let me tell you, Haynes stretches really well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No pull hamstrings or anything. But people we talk to and then trying to decipher what Jimbo tells us, I think Haynes King is the most likely starter. And I think he's going to be a good football player. The question is how good. I think A&M will be better at quarterback than they were a year ago. Yeah. Haynes did win that starting job for a reason over Zach Calzada. So we'll see. But I think you can't – I don't think you can go in and say, okay, well, Haynes King is going to be terrible, and you can't go in and say Haynes King's going to be great, because just the sample sizes of what we've actually seen from him, just there isn't enough. Now, you could have said the same thing last year about Bryce Young. Small sample size. Then he got to play, and the kid goes out and wins the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying Haynes is going to win the Heisman Trophy, but everybody, there was always a question about him before they turned out to be good. And we'll see just how good Haynes is. But I do think he's going to be the guy that's going to be the ultimate starter. I could be wrong on that, but I really feel strongly about that. And I think his speed, his elusiveness, his ability to make plays off schedule are some of the things that work in his favor.
When you think about a team, any team that goes to Atlanta in the SEC to play for the championship is a healthy team. You know, you're starting 24, because I'm including your punter and your field goal kicker. That's the key. Health wise, and that, you know, nobody can predict injuries, whatever. But what about the running backs? A&M, you know, everybody in the SEC. The league threw the ball last year more than any other conference in America. I'm talking the SEC. This year, their predictions, it'll be the greatest offensive year in conference history. 12 of the 14 schools are bringing their quarterbacks back again. I think that's a statistic that bears a great importance. But then you think about the offensive line. You and I and Jimmy have talked about this. It's hard to find offensive line. We know about the Mathews family and their great lineage there and their tradition at Texas A&M. But without an offensive line, you are going to struggle. And Alabama brought that line class in last year, offensive lineman, arguably the highest rated in recent history. And J.C. Latham, late in the season, a true freshman, got on. The Brockemeyer twins, they were 4- and 5-star. Where are they? I mean, what are they going to do? Why is it so hard to find offensive linemen? Is it it's not being emphasized? It's cooler to be a wide receiver, but big guys are going to be big guys. If you're 6'7", 320, I mean, you're kind of destined to be that, aren't you?
Well, I would think so.
Hold on, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I didn't see the stopwatch. We're going to take a quick break, and I want you to answer that after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. That question about the offensive lineman, I'd like to get your answer because I know you're going to have a good one.
Well, I mean, first of all, Rob, let's start off with there's not a lot of people that size.
Yeah.
So what are you, probably in the upper 90%, 95 percentile of humanity to be that big to begin with?
Yeah.
So let's start with only being able to consider maybe 10% of the population there. All right. Then how many of those guys that are that size can move well enough to play?
Yeah.
How many of them are tough enough? How many even want to? So there's just not a large, an enormous pool to draw from. And then, not everybody's going to be the same ability. And, it's funny you mentioned that that Alabama brought in all these 5-star guys like, the Brockmeyer kids, and still felt the need to look to Vanderbilt
Yeah.
to get a starting offensive lineman. So you never know how the guys are going to a lot of times in high school, a guy that size is going to look like a 5-star prospect because, quite frankly, he's probably week in and week out not going against somebody that's as big as he is, and definitely are probably not as athletic. And so sometimes maybe they look better than they are. And then when they pick on somebody their own size, it's you see a difference in it. So I think that may be a big part of it. I think offensive linemen may be hard to rate because, again, quite frankly, they're just so much bigger than guys they're going against in high school that as you evaluate them, what are you really evaluating? Oh, yeah, if he's going against a 250-pound guy and he's 300, he's going to win that matchup. Okay, but when you get into college and the defensive guy is 300 pounds and he can move, maybe you're not as dominant as you appeared.
Yeah. Well, and I heard a high school coach about 4 years ago at a preseason kickoff banquet say, golly, I get a lot of these parents calling me up and saying, why isn't my son playing? Why isn't he starting? And he goes, well, I'll tell you why. He's 5'5", 280 pounds. And that was pretty good in the old parochial league, in the church league. But we got guys that are freshmen that are 6'4" and 6'5", 285, and they don't look like, Fat Albert. Okay. That's what happens. And so, yeah, you're right. It is a small minority of the population that are that big. And then you got to compete with basketball. That's the other thing. But the big guys are coveted. So yeah, that's a good take on it. Jimmy, I know you got a question for Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com, and Sidelines. We got about another 12 minutes.
Well, I wanted to add to the discussion the fact that the 64 Power 5 conference teams plus Notre Dame are all competing for that limited number of the population. And
good point.
That makes it a little tougher. And you consider the fact that Alabama has 16 or 17 offensive linemen on their roster, and yet even they are having to go through an evaluation period over who their top 5 are going to be to start in the season opener, and that's going on everywhere else. So that makes the puzzle a little bit harder to complete. But as far as A&M goes, how, from what you've heard from insiders that have access to practices, their offensive line is coming along?
Well, from what I hear from insiders is that they're pretty excited about it, as we expected at 4 of the 5 positions. It's funny, Rob, you mentioned basketball. A&M's right tackle might turn out to be one of their best offensive linemen is Reuben Fothery, who was a basketball player in high school. Maybe that's the way to go. Because he's about 6'8".
Yeah, good Lord.
But I feel like, 2 of those guys were freshman All-American last year, Bryce Foster and Reuben Fothery. And Leighton Robinson's been on preseason All-American teams at right guard. So I think the feeling is A&M's offensive line from center to right tackle is in good shape. The question is, what are they going to be like on the left side? Feel like a guy like Trey Zune, I keep hearing really good things about him. But, it's when you're basing it on what you're doing in practice, does that mean your left tackle is really good, or does that mean your defensive ends need some work? You just never know when you're going against it's your own team. Maybe maybe they're both really good, and in that case, maybe you're Georgia last year. But I think with A&M, there's some question marks, and whereas we hear good things about Trey Zune at left tackle, and nobody's going to be as good at left guard as Kenyon Green was, but they've got 4 guys that they feel good about, and they feel like at least one of those guys is going to come through. But who's going to know until they actually start playing? But so if you believe what you're hearing coming out of camp or coming out of the camp, they feel real strong about the offensive line being an asset and not a liability. And it was a liability at some point He got better once Fatheree was moved into the starting lineup, but it had some problems last year.
Yeah, defensive line, that's an area where Texas A&M is just stacking up 4 and 5 star talent. I mean, good God, I that when you do that, you will not see any team in the college football playoff that doesn't have a bunch of depth on the defensive line. A&M is getting that type of depth, which means the linebackers will be able to get there and make more tackles. It means the guy in the secondary, if you've got a great pass rush and a surge up the middle, that makes the second. It's not easy, but the secondary will look a lot better. You never want to have a team where your leading tackler is your free safety, strong safety. A&M last year had a lot of talent. They lost 4 games. What are you looking for? Obviously, you expect them as a fan, you want them to win every game. But what is going to be a number of wins? Because this is year 5 for Jimbo. But you cannot also count on these freshmen they just signed in this number 1 rated class to come in. Some of them will play. But what's a number of wins that will make Aggie fans feel like satisfactory progress is being made with Jimbo at the helm?
I think you have to go into this year saying anything less than 10 wins is a disappointment in year 5. They really weren't that far away last year, and that was with a backup quarterback and 2 freshmen in the offensive line, a freshman at corner. And they weren't that far away. They came, with some good quarterback play, not great, but good quarterback play, that you could have easily won 2 more games. That said, you don't take anything for granted. There's not many games that you're in the SEC where you can circle and say, okay, that's a win. Let's move on to the next one. But I think A&M has a lot of talent. They do have question marks, but they have a lot of talent. But here in year 5, you brought Jimbo Fisher in here to make A&M a contender, and they were a contender 2 years ago. But they're at a point now where I think you got to look at it and say, okay, if you don't win 10 games at least, why not? And why do you keep pushing off till next year? When does next year arrive?
Yeah, get those bumper stickers ready. Next year is here. Go Aggies.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of NFL caliber talent on A&M's 2 deep, but there's also a lot of guys that haven't played a lot in major college football, and you think they're going to be good. You think they're going to be really. We think Walter Nolan's going to be really good, and Walter Nolan was ranked. If you believe the recruiting services, Walter Nolan had a higher ranking coming out of high school than Myles Garrett did. So if Walter Nolan can be anything approaching Myles Garrett, we'll take that right now and won't worry about the pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, Myles Garrett's one of the best freshmen I've ever seen.
Right. So you just can't assume that the next, just because he had a couple of extra points put by his name, that he's going to be better. They've got a lot of guys that haven't played that they think is going to be really good. They think it. Tamisi Adilier, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, Anthony Lucas, Shamar Stewart, a guy named Shamar Turner. A&M's going to lead the country in Shamars. But until they actually do it in SEC competition, you have to have a certain amount of apprehension.
Yeah. Look, speaking of great names, I'm sure you and Jimmy and everybody listening in the free world has seen on Twitter. I remember this kid a couple of years ago. I think he was from South Alabama, but I'm not sure. DeColdest Crawford. Have you seen this NIL deal with?
Yeah, I thought he was a Louisiana kid.
Yeah, no, yeah, okay, but yeah, I know he played for Louisiana Lafayette, and he may have transferred, but DeColdest Crawford is doing an NIL deal for a heating and air company. Yeah. I mean, that is what NIL. That is funny, and I mean when you got a name like DeColdest, you got to take advantage of it. I mean, that's. Jimmy, Olin, Rob, everybody, we're kind of, living in Mayberry, but this kid's a pretty damn good football player too. So that's as good. But I like your take on that defensive line for A&M. God, man, Jimmy, You ever seen Miles Garrett? We just got a few minutes left, but man, Miles Garrett's one of the most impactful freshmen I've ever seen in college football. And wow, if you're Olin, you're right. If you're anywhere close to that, watch out. Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, you just have to, if possible, throw these highly talented players into the deep water if they actually have the raw athletic ability and the skill level to do so, because again, you're going to have to eventually use them anyway. And if you've got a couple of games early in the season against teams that you should beat, lots of times that's a good opportunity to get them as many snaps as possible. If you can get control of the game early, get a big lead, and then allow those guys to maybe just learn on the job, make a few mistakes, but then it doesn't hurt you when you make those mistakes just because of the talent difference over the team that you're playing. But again, lots of times it just takes some reps in a game situation before certain guys that have a high ceiling, they just get it right away, and they feel comfortable, playing at that level. So, you just never know. Every player's different. Some guys are going to adjust to the competition level, not only among their own roster, but once you get out there on game day, just get used to the intensity level that is required to play at that level. So again, there's so many dynamics to college football, which makes it such a great game. And you don't know until, you put the uniforms on, turn on the lights, and then get the TV cameras rolling. And that's where you find out whether these guys are, going to be able to do it right away, or if it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Olin, I look at Texas A&M, and I look at Arkansas, LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M, Alabama. The SEC West is the toughest division in all of college football. I mean, top to bottom, it's better than anything in the pros. I'm not saying, but they could beat NFL teams. But from a 1 to 7, obviously we have 4 teams in the NFL divisions. There's just nothing like it. And you call it parity or whatever. It just means more. Well, it just makes sense to have, the fan bases married in with their teams the way they are. They expect them to win every game. Other than A&M, you think 10 wins is a number. What about last year? A&M beats Auburn. They beat Alabama, and they still don't go to Atlanta, but they lose at home to Mississippi State and on the road at Ole Miss, which has been a tough place for them to play. They did get and then LSU got the win. The last minute drive by Max Johnson. Now he's your quarterback. Can you make any sense out of that?
They got good quarterback play, outstanding quarterback play against Alabama. They got sufficient quarterback play against Auburn. Yeah. They had poor quarterback play against Arkansas. They had poor quarterback play against Mississippi State and poor quarterback play against Ole Miss. And he was good against LSU, and they let one get away from him.
Yeah,
but he was good in the second half against LSU. In the first half, he wasn't very good, and they got in. They got into a hole that they had to climb out of. So I think with A&M, so much of it comes back to what level of play are you going to get from your quarterback, because you feel like you've got an offensive line that's good enough. You got receivers now that might be really good. Of course, that's another one where you're counting on a guy like Evan Stewart, who's supposed to be good, but we don't know until we actually see it. We think we know you got a really good running back, and you think you got a good defensive line, and you got a good secondary. So what are you going to get from quarterback? And if you get I don't think he has to be a Heisman winner, but I think if you can go get a quarterback that can have a good season, not just an average season, but a good season, then there's a lot of possibilities for this team to do very well.
Yeah. Olin, great stuff as always. Let people know how they can follow you and look forward to your weekly visits. I've learned, and I continue to learn so much, not just about A&M, but about football and common sense when solving problems, because you've been writing a long time, but let people know your Twitter and all that.
Yeah, we like to think that we are the premier outlet for all things A&M sports. So if you're interested in giving us a look, it's texags.com. I always say it's the abbreviated version of Texas Aggies. It's texags.com. That's easy to figure out. And then if you can follow us on Twitter at Texags, or if you want to follow me individually, and I'd appreciate it if you would, it's my name's Olin Buchanan. You can probably see it right there on the screen. So now you don't even have to figure out how to spell it to follow me. Just look there on the screen and follow me, because I just use my name. I don't hide behind any aliases.
Hey, anyone that hides behind an alias or anonymity when they tweet or whatever like that, I don't even pay attention to them. So we know, hey, if you can spell his last name, Olin Buchanan, you need to follow him. True Grit Journalism. Thank you so much for being on here with us. Look, been another great show. We'll be back on tomorrow morning, as we are every Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, sidelines.live and 96.3 Kicks FM in Alabama on Saturdays. Look forward to it. Hey, remember, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of nothing in return. God bless America. You live in the greatest country in the world, people. Act like it. Be proud. See you tomorrow.